Trish.
And I'm Thaddeus, and you're listening to the Fallen Short podcast. Hey everyone, it's Thaddeus and Trish.
Hey.
It's been a while.
A hot while.
We probably said that last time too.
Yeah, we're good about this.
So here's the deal. We don't really have an agenda for this episode, other than just talking about what's going on in our lives, how we are managing being faithful in different aspects of our lives and stepping into the unknown. Just for starters, I know it's been, probably about 8 months since our last episode. And I'll say it again. I don't know if I said it in that one, but I know we've said it plenty of times. When we started this podcast, we set out at the beginning kind of aggressive of trying to do one every week. And then we kind of didn't want to force it. And so, it was here and there, like a couple weeks off, maybe. Then we do another long stretch. And then it's been more on me probably of saying, I don't know what to talk about. So do we really want to do this? But
I do have to say our podcast is named quite appropriately Fallen Short. We definitely fall short of getting out episodes. And if you do listen to us or you go back and listen, we just appreciate that. If not, we're just kind of putting this out there just to be faithful to God anyways. And hopefully in our faithfulness, there are people that are blessed by it. But really, it's just kind of on our hearts and on our minds consistently. But it's really hard with just the crazy and busyness of life to prioritize it. And like Thaddeus said, a lot of times he feels like there's stuff that we could talk about, but how controversial do we want to be, or stuff that how personal do we want to be? Because there's so much in our life that isn't just about us. It's about other people we really love. And when that's what's weighing on your heart, you want to talk about it, but you don't want to talk about it in a public forum. So it's navigating.
Well, and even, it's how personal do we get, but also when we think of like current events or things that could be labeled as an agenda, let's be honest. I'll be honest. Trish works at our church. And so it's one of those things where our podcast does not represent our church necessarily, and it doesn't represent where I work either. But there's always going to be those people that if you don't say what they like, they're going to try to cancel you, even though we're on the grand scale of things, like we're nowhere.
And that could come from anywhere, not
we're pretty small time, right?
Right. And canceling, obviously, it could come from anywhere, not a set location. But we've been on quite an adventure the last few months, and God has taken us through quite a bit of changes. And I feel for me, the past few months have been definitely a time where I have had to lean in my faith more and practice what I preach and practice what I believe, and not just go through the motions of Christianity and the motions of being a mom or a wife or whatever, but it's been more a leaning into God. And just to get a little personal, we do have 4 kids, and our parenting is far from perfect as our kids. And so the journey of parenting has been rough over the seasons and has also been really good. I would say that I've learned a lot about the love God has for us through parenting. So that's been really cool. But just leaning into the season, feeling called out of comfort, I think is what God keeps putting in my heart, is that he's calling me out of my comfort zone. He's calling me not to be comfortable, but to lean into him and to follow him.
I'd say agree with you. Like parenting over the last handful of months and just the different aspects of it, we're still learning, and, we're what people would call quote unquote young parents. We got married young. We had our first kid young. We are going to be very young by today's standards when they're all graduated out of high school. Could potentially be very young by today's standards, grandparents. But yeah, just dealing with things as parents. To be a little personal, like our oldest was going through some things over the course of the last school year, where we had to navigate some things that we were unsure of how to navigate them.
I felt like in that season, I was just like, God, they're yours anyways. The kids are yours, so take care of them. Like, I kind of got to that point of feeling defeated where the point of defeat brought me to a point of surrender, which was kind of a beautiful place to be, but maybe wasn't my natural inkling, because my natural inkling would want to be controlling or have more influence or more say, or probably mama bear and just protect. And so getting to that point where I felt like I couldn't control and I couldn't protect and I couldn't do the things that me as a mama bear wanted to do, I had to come to that point of surrendering before God. And I learned a lot through that season.
Yeah, it was very much a learning experience for us, and what came out of it was really good. And I think even what came out of it, not just for us, was really good, but for him as well. He took some steps to correct some things in his life, and some of those steps, friendships aren't really there anymore because of it, making steps to make changes. And that's tough. You're a teenager. It's tough to, close yourself off from certain people that you've been close to. And, that's not to say he's never going to have trials down the road. Nobody, everybody does. So, and I would just say in that time too, like, even, he's been around growing up in the Christian culture and Christian faith his whole life. Right. And I'd say, like, a lot of us that grow up in the church, there are times where you want to run away, and times where it's like you really don't know what you believe in, or you have grand ideas that maybe differ. And we could go back to our previous episodes where we talked about deconstructing and reconstructing your faith, right? In a different type of way, right? So I'd say like a big thing for him was going on a trip with our church, and our oldest daughter also went, where they were able to go and kind of not know where they were going or what they're going to be doing, but it was a mystery, and them being able to kind of be out of their comfort zone and not know where they were staying, sleeping, not knowing what they were going to be doing, but then being able to be there and serve and just do things for God and for the people of God, because we're all God's people, and just being selfless in that way. I think that was huge for both of the kids that went on that. Now the younger two, they're younger, so they maybe down the line they'll have something like that, but that's a different story.
Well, and to add to that too, when we came back from that trip, our son immediately left to we took our kids to family camp, and our son ended up staying at family camp and really encountered the Holy Spirit even there. And I just think the Lord aligned his schedule perfectly this summer to have a deep encounter with him. And my son has expressed to me that he maybe before didn't own his faith as much as he does now. And being a pastor's kid myself and a minister's kid, I can say I had to go through a similar season. And I think every kid does, whether your parents are in ministry or not, you go through a season. But I'm just proud of him, and I'm proud that he worked himself through it and he got through it. And I'm so thankful that we got to that point as parents where we really just had to say, I guess I just had to say, where am I not trusting God in this and why? And ask that within myself. And what has that God done to show me that I shouldn't trust him? Because he's only ever proved himself faithful when I have trusted him. So I kind of got to that point of surrender in parenting where I was like, okay, God, like I said earlier, he's yours. And I'm going to release this control and this fear that I have, and I'm just going to trust you, God. And it was just so cool to see. I'm not saying that where my son is at now is a result of just me. God has worked all these things together, and Thaddeus even had. I'll say this. Some things happened where I just felt like I, as a mom, needed to step back, and I needed to let Thaddeus be the dad, and I needed to just be the proud mom. And that was a huge shift in my parenting approach because of homeschooling my kids all the way through and working with them in the youth group and kind of always having my hands in the mud with them and when they're going through hard times, to just step back and call out what I see, like speak truth, life, destiny into the situation and into him, instead of coming in hot as like, this is what you're doing wrong and this is where you need to change, but just coming in and saying, yeah, I know this happened and I know I'm here if you need to talk, but just know I'm proud of you. And I see that God is working all things together for his good through this situation, and letting Thaddeus really take the lead in that season. And I know there's probably some of you moms listening who are doing it all by yourself and you don't have that dad in your kid's life so that you can really lean into. But I think God has grace over your life for that too, and to speak in your kids' lives that way. And look for other men around. If you have sons that are going through hard things, that would be my encouragement. Who can pour into your sons, because they need that man voice speaking into their lives, just like our girls need that too. And they all need moms too. I think that's why we're better together, husband and wife and moms and dads, because we work together as a team and we cover so much more than when we're just doing it by ourselves.
And I'd say, just speaking of, the kids were put out of their comfort zones on that trip. I think also with everything that our oldest went through, like he ultimately, we had to, decide with him, but he ultimately decided he wanted to come back and be at home for school. We're not traditionally homeschooling him. He's doing an online program through our district. But the past 2 years he was in public school. And so now he's made the decision of like, I need to be away from the environment I was in, which is a huge step up for him. Yes, there are times we as parents are like, well, you got to learn how to be in that environment and be able to, battle through that. But I think it's a, let's see how this goes type of situation. And, our oldest daughter went to public school for the first time last year, and she's still in it this year. And out of our comfort zones, more so for Trish, the younger two are now also in public school for the first time.
I will say I have found comfort in it. I think initially when I felt like the Lord was kind of speaking to us about it, I had a little wrestle, but more so I kept waiting for the ball to drop, and I kept waiting for like this sadness to come over my heart that, oh, we're sending the kids to school, or, oh, we sent the kids to school. And thankfully, by the grace of God, I haven't had that like extreme sadness yet. And, there was maybe one night where my son and I just had a big heart to heart, my youngest son. And we said, like, this is hard for both of us. And we kind of met each other in our sorrow. But ever since then, I think we've all been pretty good and really just trying to trust God that he knows why the kids are there and he knows what he's doing. And I don't know really why any of the changes had to happen. We homeschooled for 11 years and just really felt this was a time and this was a season to send them. And we're still trying to work out the reasons why. It's not super clear, but.
So we don't know, necessarily why the timing is now. If there's things in our near future that makes sense for Trish to be working more in some sort of capacity, whether we don't know what that means, whether that's at her current job
or making more podcasts
or doing more podcasts, or for her to be able to go and speak places like she's done in the past, but on a more regular basis, more.
Well, and I'll say this too. I have an intense heartbeat for the nations.
Yeah, that too. I mean, coming up, Trish is going on another trip, which I know we mentioned before, where she's gone on some mission trips. At least I think we have. But she's going on another one where she's very soon, where she's going to be going to basically an unreached people group. Yeah. So, is that part of why it was time for us to put the kids in school? We don't know. I mean, that might be part of it. We don't know what the full extent is. We don't know what the future holds. I would just say it's more or less acting in stepping out of comfort zones, where Trish homeschooled for how many years?
11.
11 years. So it's a big.
I gave a lot of my life to it.
A big step. I wouldn't say it's a leap of faith because to me, it's something that we've prayed about, where it's like, yeah, this is we feel good about this.
Well, and I'll say this, I think maybe the last couple of years of homeschooling, fear has had a little grip on my heart that what if my kids get into school and they get corrupted and they get swept up with culture and they get all these things. And having our oldest son go through what he went through and seeing that, yeah, the public school really did impact him when he went into it. But I got to see God hold him through it and God take him through that. And I guess the Lord showed me the gaps in what I claimed to believe and what I actually practiced with my son. And I think in this season, God is also showing me, what do you claim to believe and what do you actually practice and where are the gaps? And I've really had to press it in my faith in a different way in this season and practice my faith in just a way that I haven't in a lot of years. And it's been kind of beautiful. It's been kind of awful. And it's been, I don't know, it's been restorative. And, there's been resistance and things I've been doing in life. But I also feel like with the resistance, I've had resilience. And God, I wouldn't say I had resilience, but I feel like God has given me resilience. And so I just feel like in the season, possibly even letting homeschooling define too much of who I was, and opportunities would come along my way and I'd say, oh, I can't because I homeschool, and not really take the time to press into God and pray and say, hey, God, is this something you want me to do? But I kind of just answered. And whether or not it was something God wanted me to do when I've had opportunities, I just made the decision because of homeschooling that I couldn't be stretched in a new way. So homeschooling is happening at our house with our oldest. I'm not traditionally homeschooling anybody though. So now I have a lot of free time and just seeking the Lord what that should look like and what I should do with it. So I'm excited for what is to come. I'm praying that God gives me some direction. I don't want to just do things to do them. I want to do them because it's what God wants me to do. So that's where I'm at. And if you think to pray, please pray. I'd really appreciate it.
Well, and that being said too, even just direction in where we should go with this. So if you do listen and you feel like leaving us a comment, if you go to our website, fallenshortpodcast.com, you can comment on the episodes themselves, or you can email us at info@fallenshortpodcast.com and just let us know what whether, hey, we're praying for you for direction, or, hey, have you thought about this? Essentially, it'd be nice just to know that you are praying for us. But direction for us with this, is this something that we need to pick up and do on a consistent weekly basis or monthly basis or whatnot? Do we continue in the same format where a lot of our episodes, I'd say early on, we talked a little bit about current events, and then it got more into structured series, like almost messages. Yes, a little bit of banter back and forth, but do we continue down that road? Do we go back to doing more talking about current events? Do we lean into it being more just Trish and I, just kind of stand by it? Do we try to do video format? Do we try to have guests? Like, do we lean into the name Fallen Short Podcast and have guests on to talk about, things where it's been a struggle in life and where they've, seen God in it and turned it around?
And maybe that's you. Maybe you'd want to be a guest, and that's what you're reaching out to us about.
So we, direction. If you can pray for us, pray for direction and in the podcast itself, what we should be doing, but also just general direction. We could use that. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know why it is that the time was now to send, the younger two kids to school. But what we do know is that we feel confident that it is what God wanted for us.
And we feel confident in our obedience. And when Jesus told the disciples to follow him, he didn't tell them where. He said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. But he didn't say where they were going, what they were going to do. And so I'm excited for this season of life. And in all trueness, in my heart of hearts, like there's so much anticipation and an excitement to see what God can do with us, because we're completely pliable. We're completely moldable into doing whatever it is he has us to do. Especially me, I have a lot more free time than Thaddeus, but I know Thaddeus is super supportive of whatever that looks like. So
again, we just asked you guys for prayer, but if you have any prayer requests, feel free to email those to us as well. info@fallenshortpodcast.com, because we'd love to pray for you, and we would love to just hear from you in general. And until next time, whenever that is, I'm Thaddeus.
And I'm Trish, and we love you guys.
Are you currently doing your own podcast, or maybe you're aspiring to start one? If you are, we'd like to encourage you to check out Blueberry Podcasting for all of your hosting needs. We use Blueberry today, and let me tell you, it's real slick. Works with our website just fine on a plugin. So if you use our code Fallen Short, you can get your first month free. So you can go ahead and click that affiliate image link on our website and get started with your podcast.